So now for our second big topic, we have an even better panel. I think the other panel was good, but this looks very promising. From my right, your left, Susanna Mesa Graham. You're the Chief Chief Something Officer of Paradox. Great, thanks for joining us and thanks for having us. Pernilla Alexandersson, you're an author, you're an advisor on diversity and equality. You have a company called Add Gender, yes. And you're also
a legend.
That's on this stage. No, that's the qualification.
Yes.
But you're also a trained game developer, am I right?
No, I'm actually not. I was supposed to be.
Oh.
But I put up with some walls on the way because of being female.
Oh, really?
So I needed to study gender equality first. 10 years has passed, so let's see.
Okay, we'll get back to that. And John Hargelid, you're the Chief Technology Officer for Paradox. Is that right?
About right.
Set me straight then. Come on, what's it going to be?
Information.
Oh, information. So information as in stock prices or as data in the games? Or?
All sorts of data and the tech that kind of supports it.
Information is power, man. Have to tell you. Okay, great to have you. Jenny Brusk, last but not least, all the way from Skövde on a slow train.
Alingsås.
All the way from, oh, that's even further. Yeah, from the framsidan.
Exactly.
Welcome, thanks for coming all the way.
Thanks.
And you're do we say professor at Högskolan i Skövde?
Senior lecturer.
Senior lecturer,
yes.
Okay, senior lecturer at Högskolan i Skövde in game design.
Yeah.
Yes, and you have written a doctor's thesis on dialogue systems in games.
Yes.
Yes, and you have a very interesting initiative. You have a very interesting about how to bring more girls into the games industry.
Exactly.
Yes, all right.
Called Donna.
Donna,
yeah.
That's right. Okay, good. So everybody's been introduced, and the question here now is, looking at who plays games, everybody plays games, and looking at who makes games, it's not really reflecting the player community. So the typical game developers are, they're younger, typically more male, often whiter, but maybe not. So we are not making, there's a mismatch between the makers and the players, let's say. And I want to sort of dig into that and find out if that's, what that does for us as an industry and how we can maybe change that if we'd like to. But let me start on a more positive note. In our annual report, we look at the amount of women versus men employed by the industry, and there's been a dramatic increase in the proportion of women and in the number of women. The number of women working in games development actually increased sixfold in 5 years. So 6 times as many women work in making games now. They decided to choose game development as a career. It's still only 18%, but it's a big step. So why is this? Why is this happening now? Why is this change coming, Susanna? Why are more women considering and actively choosing a career in games development?
First of all, I think that if you have a sixfold increase in a number that's not super high, I mean, that's something that needs to be addressed as well. But I think just over the past, I've been in the industry for almost 13 years. I would say that the way we speak about how we need to diversify the industry and the people who work in it has changed dramatically. I can only speak for us, but we're out talking to people. We have a lot of female role models out. I know I have a lot of female tech educated people who come up to me and say, oh, thanks to all the women that I've met, I'm now interested in a career in the games industry. So I think that has helped, definitely.
All right, Pernilla, we'll get to the bad sides, but what is the reason that there's a positive development, do you think?
Well, we have fought a lot, the people that are for pro gender equality and diversity in the industry. So the amount you let in is the amount that you get out of an engagement. So, as you said, maybe we could see some more increase because of the work we have been doing. I hope so.
All right, so there's hope and change can be made. John, why do you think more women want to join the industry now, or do join the industry?
Yeah, hopefully it's also because of like the rest of the society has changed and the awareness of these types of challenges are, a lot more people are aware of it, and I think it also, the awareness within upper management and kind of the manager layer is increasing. So things like gender bias in recruitment processes is actually, I don't have any facts to support this, but I get the feeling when I talk about with my peers in the industry that, you know, the awareness, it's a lot higher. So hopefully that's part of the reason. And also role models, I agree. It's really important and great to see so many role models that are more diverse than just maybe 5 years ago.
All right, Jenny, I guess you know what I'm going to ask you, so do I need to say it?
You mean education, perhaps? Or?
No, the question is
same
only
question, yeah.
why more women?
Yes, and there are so many reasons. I think that we've been working very hard from all different angles, both from the industry. I think that the industry has changed a lot, I agree with you, and I think that has made a huge difference for us, who are the educators, because that means that it's easier for us to also recruit more female students. But we work really hard to reach out to new target groups, not only to the ones that have already decided upon a career as a game developer, which typically is a man. So I think all of the work together has made it possible for girls and women to actually consider doing a career in games. Because they need to see role models, they need to make sure that they are welcome in the games industry. And I think that the games industry has actually started to show that they are welcome. And I think that is great.
All right, so that was the good part. The next is going to be what the bad part is, and then you follow the logic. I'm going to ask what we can do about it. So it's very straightforward here. So what's the main reason keeping women from joining the games industry today? We'll do the same, Susanna.
Okay, well, I think it's not necessarily only a games industry thing. If you look in tech, if you look in a lot of technical disciplines, this is not isolated to games. But I think there's a perception, and some people have also lived it themselves, that the games industry is not very welcoming, and I think that has hurt us a lot, even though I think a lot of companies have worked really hard to try and change that. So I think that would be one of the main issues, really.
So it's not that women are not interested in games, it's that the games industry antagonizes them.
I've talked to so many women who haven't even considered a career in games, and when they actually find out what it's about and meet people who work in the games industry, it's a completely different thing. So I'm not really sure why that is, but I imagine it has something to do with the image that we're projecting from the industry, and also what you hear, like what you see in the news and what you hear from people maybe who work in different companies. So it's both making sure that people feel welcome, making sure that we can find more people, but also what happens when you're in the company, that you feel like it's an inclusive environment, regardless of what gender you are.
Is it a fair image? Are they right about the attitudes and structures existing?
I can only speak based off of my experiences, but we work very hard to make sure that that isn't the case at all. In fact, when I talk to new employees at Paradox, they often comment on how much they feel like home, regardless of who you are. It's more what you bring to the table and what you deliver that's important. And that, I think, is a key factor to have an inclusive workplace.
So we'll think about how we can change that image. But Pernilla, you wanted to be a game developer, but you decided to quit. What happened?
Well, I decided to trace the problem to the source, because I was really interested in why couldn't I be a game or a game developer at the same possibilities as a man in the same age. So I wouldn't put it as quitting, more like finding out why, because I was really interested in why do that person over there think that I isn't capable of gaming or designing games because of my gender. that was a really like hard identity like puzzle for me to solve. So when you ask like why are things changing or why isn't things going faster, I would say the answer that I've seen in these years I've been looking into this question is, well, it's the institution of creativity and gaming, but mostly the institution of what is creativity that we need to address and change, because we are all equally creative. And when people say to me, well, what if you don't? What if you aren't capable? Then I lose trust in myself. And then it's important with role models and so on. But in the end, we need to say to every talent out there that you're welcome. And that is inclusion.
But why do you say institution of creativity? Do you mean that we think of creativity that's something typically male? Is that?
We think of it as something that you can possess and something that you like have a talent for. But actually, every child that grows up is creative. But what we put the labels on them that makes them more or less creative in different areas, different interests. And gaming and tech has been, for many years, something that is a label for boys and men. And that is what we need to change. So it's not only in the industry, it's also the games we are making, the characters, the commercials, the marketing, like everything, the education that we need to address with this awareness that we have raised.
So it's not only this idea of the male genius, Da Vinci, Strindberg, Lars von Trier, it's also how we present ourselves as an industry, which is kind of what Susanna was saying.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, there's tons of stuff in there, but I'll move on to Jon.
It's on a high level.
Yeah, let's dig deeper shortly. But Jon, what do you think is the most important factor keeping women from looking for a career in games?
Wow, hard to follow up on that, but so I'll try to say something different. I'm going to go back to something that's concrete and close to myself. Again, the recruiting process. Usually, we might traditionally not be the most organized industry, so we discover fairly late that, hey, we need another programmer or graphics artist or designer. And when you are in that stressed mode, you just need to find someone real quick. Usually you go back to, okay, so you browse through all these applications that come in, and you probably pick something that is familiar to you, close to you, etc. So again, raising awareness, looking at the processes, and kind of whoever is involved in the recruitment process needs to be made aware of what do you do when you sift through CVs. I mean, just a simple thing like if you are already willing to go for a junior candidate straight from school, why not use that opportunity to diversify your workforce? If you're looking for senior people, yes, then it becomes more of a, okay, what's already out there, and obviously we know what's out there. But when you go to the more junior side, why not use that opportunity to diversify?
So your point is not so much that it's a lack of appetite in women potentially joining the industry, but the recruitment process as the companies, as the employers execute it.
You have to look further, like you have to work a little harder.
Yeah, exactly. So instead of always taking the easy way out, try to kind of take a step back, look at it, think it through. Okay, what's good for the industry and the company as a whole? Maybe not like we always do things.
But you said that we're short-sighted and this happens last minute. Is this a problem that's not strictly limited to recruitment and gender and diversity? Is that more of an overall issue for us as an industry? Or is that maybe part of how great it is to be creative and we increase our ambition level every day? And is that part of, does that go deeper to the core of game development?
I don't think it's unique for game development at all. I think it exists in most industries. So again, you have to reach that critical mass for any underrepresented group of people before it becomes normal, if you will. And as long as you are underrepresented, you will not be the first of mind or top of mind. So I think most people are short-sighted, I guess is my evil answer.
Fair enough. Not very hopeful, but if we accept that, we might do something about it. And thanks for already moving into suggestions and solutions, but we'll do more suggestions and solutions. I want to hear more about problems first from Jenny.
I think they've mentioned most of them, but I'm thinking continue of the image, because the image of the game industry and how they present themselves is one thing, because that will either attract someone or just repel someone. But then you have society as well that would catch up on this image and say that, okay, this is how they present themselves, this is how the industry is and works, and if you sort of have the image that it only addresses men in a certain age, at a certain ethnicity, then of course society will pick up on this and say that, well, you are excluded, so this is not for you. And this goes together with technology, because adults tend to sort of convince the girls that technology is not really for them. So if you have a bad attitude, sort of a bad picture of the game industry in combination with something that, you know, this is not for girls when it comes to technology, I think there's no reason for a girl to choose technology in games, because they've already been sort of pushed away from it. I've had students saying that, well, my parents, they were really discontent with my choice. They really didn't want me to study games, but I did it anyway. I studied this first, but then I changed even so. And it takes a strong girl to do that choice. And this is about how we talk about games in society. We're politicians saying that games are for boys, it's bad, it takes time from your homework, and it's violent, and it increases violent behavior, and a lot of stuff that aren't even true. And of course, there's nothing here about the girls. So of course, how can you ever feel that the games industry or the game culture is for you? Most of them actually drops out of the game culture in the teenage, because that's when they're not included anymore. And I think that is a huge problem that we have to address.
So it's like a catch-22 situation. We have this attitude, and it's confirmed by the outside world, whether it's how the media talks about it or how decision makers talk about it.
It's a reflection, sort of.
And also the industry seems to confirm that by the choices that we make as an industry.
Yeah.
So it's like a self-reinforcing system that's keeping the girls out.
Yeah, so we have to change it in order for the conversation around game can change, that we have to change. We have to change among our students, how we talk about games, how we create games, that we encourage diversity in games and inclusive game development, and then they will end up in the industry and sort of using this knowledge there. And so I hope that we can sort of change this wheel to be a better, better spin.
Yeah, and also if we are talking problems, I would like to bring out the dirty laundry, and that is sexual harassment. Because I've been working as a gender equality consultant in this industry for 10 years, as I said, and sexual harassment against women are everywhere, and also against trans persons. So I think that we need to also be aware of, in this industry where we are creative, we are talented, and we are considering ourselves as a part of the future and the modernity that is connected to the future and the image of ourselves. We also have these old rigid norms and structures where people are getting harassed at their workplace and also at their spare time, their life. And that is something that I think when we get more aware in recruiting and we get in a more diverse workforce, we also need to, in every workplace and every employer around this industry, we need to tell ourselves, how can we address harassment, sexual harassment, so that people feel welcome and can be creative together. And that's not as fun to talk about as every other problem that we have been talking about, but it needs to be addressed.
Yeah, and you also didn't say online, but I think sexual harassment online needs to be on that
both
list.
on workplace and online.
And is this something that's a bigger problem in the games industry, or is it in workplaces in general? Do we have a bigger issue?
Because of the studies shows that, as you said, when you are 30% or less of a certain group, you don't feel included. So in the games industry, of course, we have a problem with like women being minorities and men being majorities, and the problem is not that the counting the heads. The problem is that you are feeling excluded and just by being there with your body. So then the problem becomes more harsh, because when you get harassed, or if you get harassed, you like get the last push out, because there's like I can't take this. It's too much of a fuss to get included here. So it's a bigger problem because of the lack of diversity, gender diversity, but it's of course a problem in all industries and all workplaces. But we need to see it as a way. Anti-harassment work is a way of attracting and keeping talent.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, again, I can only speak for my company, but also the conversation that we have in general, but I think that a lot of companies are getting very, very clear on what is acceptable behavior, what is not acceptable behavior. We have, yearly studies where we send out questions that are completely anonymous about how the workplace environment feels, what the culture is like. We take massive steps to make sure that, we have zero tolerance towards certain behavior. So I'm not, this is obviously Pernilla has had, these kind of findings and things. It doesn't necessarily correlate with the image that I have of the games industry, but regardless, we need to be super clear on what is acceptable behavior and not, whether, it exists or not in certain workplaces. But I'd like to widen the topic a little bit as well, and just not talk about gender diversity, but just diversity in general, because I often get asked to these kind of events because I'm a female executive. So I become, like the poster person for gender equality in the industry. And when we talk about diversity, when we talk about diversity at work as well, we talk about acceptance of ideas, like having different types of opinions, that it's okay to have different types of opinion, being open-minded towards other people having diverging views on things. And when you have those kind of talks where you maybe sometimes even heated discussions about, you feel very passionate about your idea, then in the end a team will end up with an idea that they've all contributed to, and that's a form of diversity as well. So I think it's important to not only look at inclusion as gender diversity, but also acceptance of other people's opinions, backgrounds, and that's why it's so important to have like a diverse makeup of your team. And the reason why we talk a lot about gender diversity is because the percentages are very, very low. So it's something very, very tangible that we can work on, but we should also look at the other aspects of it, because then I think you have an environment that men, women who take these kind of things seriously feel very comfortable in.
Yeah, let's pick up on that thread in a second. I just want to do some more sexual harassment first. Jenny, you wanted to weigh in.
Yes, I just wanted to add something, because I think that even though a female game developer is not harassed at her company here, sort of, I've heard stories when they are out on conferences, international conferences, and meet other people in the industry, not perhaps having, the same kind of level of gender equality as we probably have here in Sweden. So even though they have a safe environment here, it doesn't mean that they have it in the game industry as such. And I think that is difficult to address, but still very it exists.
Sort of attitudes in work outside the workplace.
Yes, I heard one game developer from a big company in Sweden who had they're working with this in their company. There's no problem there, but she said when she's out on conferences, she gets harassed by others, and not necessarily feeling supported though by her sort of male colleagues, so that she's not necessarily safe that they will back her up.
Right.
So she has to sort of deal with it herself. So I think that could be a problem. So even though your colleagues are great, it doesn't mean that the people in the whole industry that you meet are great. And there have been problematic attitudes within the games industry for a long while. I mean, was this the first year without booth babes at GDC? I don't know, but it was not so long ago that they actually had that. So.
Yeah, it all starts with management as well. I mean, John is one of our biggest advocates at Paradox. He's, working with women in games. And, it's like a really strong message that I'm not the one only out talking about equality, that Fred, our CEO, feels for it. So it starts with management, I think, like feeling supported by your peers and especially by your bosses is super important.
Super important.
Okay, so picking up on the point that Susanna just made about diversity being bigger than gender, you said one of the reasons we talk so much about women is because the numbers are so low. I also think that we talk more about that particular aspect because we can measure it. We get the annual returns from all the companies, and they have to state number of women employed, so we can measure it. Measuring sort of ethnicity, sexual orientation, diversity in functionality, things like that is not as clear as to put a number and make a graph from. And I'd like to think that actually we do have some strong points in our industry, and I mean the Swedish industry. I like to think that we have a lot of different languages, lots of different nationalities, people from many places. I think actually that's a strength on the part of our industry, that we have been able to integrate creative people from other cultures in our way of working. So that would be one positive. I also think that when it comes to variation in function, whether it's physical or cognitive, I think we may have some opportunities to offer a positive work life for those people with which may not exist in some other industries. I think age is where we might have a challenge as an industry. We're very sort of age-focused, hegemonic, I don't know, is that a word even? Yeah, we're about the same age, all of us, that's what I'm trying to say. So
we're all in our 20s, right?
and yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm 24, by the way. And Pernilla, you said transsexual or trans people. So can you talk about diversity in the greater aspect then? And you gave a great solution on how to make that happen, Susanna, about the acceptance of ideas, but maybe some other perspectives on inclusion of various kinds.
Yeah, I think we can talk about diversity and profitability and connect it to creativity, because as you said, Per, we can't really measure a lot of the other diversity variabilities, but we can say from the research that if you have a diverse workforce or diverse team, if they have an inclusion in the team where people can be safe and kind to each other, they will get a better solution or a better idea than if the group or team isn't diverse. But it can also be if you're not inclusive and have a kindness in your team during the idea and creativity phase, the diversity can backfire. So if we are talking not only about gender diversity as a whole, we can talk about equally creative, equally talented, and equally working together in the team, because that's the core of diversity in this industry, a creative industry. So that is my point of view, like diversity as something that can bring profitability and creativity into a team and a workplace. and an industry.
And that brings me actually to the point you made before about sort of the myth of the male genius as the icon of creativity.
Yeah, I like it how you're myth of
Yeah, this is my... At one time I wanted to be an actor, but nobody else wanted me to be an actor, so that's why I'm now running the industry association. Never mind, it's the best thing that ever happened to me. So the male genius thing, because the way we think about creativity in games, with a few exceptions, granted, but we like to think of it as a group effort. We like to think as creativity that comes from the team, and different from some other places where it's like one genius, that's the sort of demon director. It's like difficult for a game developer to sort of step forward and say, well, this was my game, and it's so cool because I'm so smart. These guys helped, but it was my game. You don't really say that.
That is not okay in the gaming. And actually, me working with different industry, I can only give you that image back to you because it's unique for the gaming industry, and that's why I think it's a great way to challenge the institution of creativity, because it's the team that is in focus, and that's really good.
All right, so that's a strong point then. John, what about the other flavors of diversity?
Yeah, I would actually like to avoid that question and just keep spinning on this, because I think that aspect, not having a face, also makes it more difficult for media, journalists that really want to look into, so how are things over here? I mean, if it's a famous actor doing something, that usually ends up in media, like, he was a jackass. That's going to go on the newspaper the day after. Maybe that's also a challenge for our industry, that we don't put the faces out there and we don't really talk about individuals. Also makes it a lot harder to find the bad apples in the industry. So I'd like to challenge the media a bit to like start digging.
Yeah, and also the industry need to take control of the story they are telling, and that's the solution of changing the institution, like saying, this is our story about creativity, this is our story about diversity, and not only like waiting, as you said, a stressful environment and so on, not only waiting for a journalist to call and say, who's the boss here? You're saying, well, this is our story. So that's
here are the good examples.
Yeah, here are the good examples, and this is how we want to tell it, because we are changing the way we are looking on teams, creativity, project management, and so on.
I like that part. That's what we've been discussing, right? On the board, it's like we need to own our story more and also project what we want the industry to be.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yes.
Yeah, it's leadership, right? Jenny, more flavors of diversity.
No, but I'm thinking we try to leave the gender equality subject in some way, but I think that is actually a very good start for diversity and all, because if you have that, it shows that you are open and tolerant and you want to include more people. So I think that is a very good start, because it makes you start working with a working environment, for instance, making it really, welcoming and safe and tolerant for everyone. Because I can see that in our education, since we work with this Donna project, where we try to work with gender inclusion in many different ways, it sort of spills over to the others as well. I mean, we have some transgendered students. Before, I guess they didn't, want to sort of say that, but now it's no problem. They are like, oh no, I'm trans, and so we don't even know anymore what gender they have, because it can be any, and it's of course totally okay. And we were just very happy that they don't feel that they have to hide it. And I think it goes, for all types of diversity, that they should just feel that this is a safe environment for me. The school addresses these questions and thinks they are important, which means that I am also included. So I think it is a good starting point, even though we're not sort of addressing that like explicitly. I think we do, just by having those values that we find important, and I think that is a good start for everyone.
And you can also have an intersectional perspective on gender equality, because you can measure gender at time in Sweden, of course, if you have that point of view. But if you have an intersectional, that is an academic word for adding more perspectives to gender equality and looking over the diversity spectrum, then you can look within like female, male, trans, what different diversity variables do we have, like introvert, extrovert, functionality, variability, ability, and ethnicity, and background, parents, not parents, and so on, and age. So I think that we don't need to broaden our view on diversity, and we don't need to only talk about gender equality or vice versa. We can talk about everything at the same time if we have the intersectional view on diversity. Then it doesn't matter where we start or what we do. Then the only thing we need to do when we are a company, that is starting at our business case. Because that is what we do when we are.
Okay. So
and actually,
yeah.
can I just add to Pernille's
Sure.
point there? I think that I have a lot of discussions with female applicants who are like, it's really important to me that I get to join Paradox based on my merits, what I know, what I can bring to the table. I don't want to be some kind of token female, hire. I want to make sure that what I can bring is really valuable. And so that's really important as well. And that goes on to what you were saying, is that it's all about the business case. It's all about creating great results together. And that's what you should be, not judged on, but at least your merit should be what counts and not all the
what
other
do we
points.
need? Because the companies in the gaming sector in Sweden, that is my experience in the most, is so different. I mean, Paradox, you make your own productions, and another company is getting like more of a mission. So it's like, what's the business case? What do we, as you said, what do we need to bring to the table? And that is the diversity we need to create.
All right, I want to move now to solutions and tangible action. And actually, I spot Anna Särner in the audience. Anna, hey, how are you doing? Great to see you here, because you have been a leader in diversity and equality in the film industry. Obviously, you're the director of the Swedish Film Institute, in case somebody isn't familiar with your name and your role. And we'd love to know what kind of experiences that you have from a different sort of neighboring industry and working with diversity and inclusion and equality. Can I just warn you and maybe ask you in a couple of minutes to grab a mic and share some of your experiences? Would that be okay? Perfect, thank you. Okay, so I want to hear first about what are you doing today? What are the activities that you're doing right now? And what have they accomplished? And we talked a little bit about how the progress that we have made, the little progress or the modest progress, is still a result of some of the activities. So what are we doing right now? And then we can look further in the next round. Susanna.
Sure. Okay, so I started out by saying that it starts with the management team and it starts at the top. So from the board down to like all layers, we've been very clear on the fact that we want to have a higher percentage of female ratio on all levels. So in our board, we have 40% women, for instance, which is, I think, good for any industry, but for the computer games industry, it's fantastic. In our management team, it's 25%, and then we're still working on the other layers of management in the company. So I think that is number one, like just starting to really show it from all levels. It's not just like getting one department and fill it with women, and then you can change the ratio and the numbers, and then putting a goal on it. So we have a goal, it's very clear. I mean, for us it's ambitious, it's still not 50-50, we're far away from that, but we have a clear goal, and it's very explicit in the company. Everyone knows. We still hire the best people for the job, but we want to have a higher percentage of female employees. So it's like, it's a non-negotiable. If you don't like it, you don't have to come work with us, in a way. Like, it's not, we don't hide it.
Can you talk about the dynamics of the board and the lead and the management team? Because there's a lot of talk in the sort of wider debate about quotas of women on boards of companies, etc. So what are the differences and dynamics, and how come you have more women on the board than the management team?
I don't know, actually. I think it's got to do with a lot of us have sort of grown up in the industry, and if there's not a massive pool of women, then there's a less percentage naturally. But when it comes to the board, we have very, very specific skill sets that we want to fill. And so there's a lot of really talented women out there. So I think it was just a natural thing. It was a conscious decision from our board to widen the application pool. And it just so happens that some of the best applicants were female. So they were very happy about that.
Good. Okay, so that's one tangible thing, to set the goal and make sure that there's representation, a wider representation in some of these formal decision-making groups. Pernilla, can you talk about what's working today? What kind of actions you see today that are useful?
Yeah, the goals are of course really important, because if you measure something, it gets done, and if it don't get done, you know exactly what you need to address. But also at Agenda we are making diversity strategies. For example, I think that's really good, like finding your business case and having also programs and like for raising awareness. But also one thing that we have been seeing working that is a bit innovative, and of course I'm an entrepreneur, so we just found out another idea that we said we're doing a leadership program for men. So it's called Add Men to Change. So it's a network for men working for equality, and a few of them who has been, that is today in the alumni for this program, have been men in the gaming sector, like advocating for gender equality, but they get together for themselves. So I think sometimes we just need to think from another perspective and say, okay, hello, female, come here. Well, that may not be the solution. Maybe the solution is to start working with men, and of course start working with the men that are pro-equality, are pro-diversity, and ask them, what do you need to follow up on your promises or your values or the goals that you have set. So that is a tip for everyone, just to turn the perspective to another angle and start working with the sponsors in the industry that says, you're welcome. How do you say it? When do you say it? When do you include or exclude, so that they become more aware?
Okay, John, I was in your office the other week for a networking session. What was that? Why was I there? Whatever was I doing in your office the other week?
You were there because we've started you could call it a cooperation across borders in Europe. So there's an organization called Women in Games, and we've signed up to kind of be the Swedish representative for starters. But obviously the aim is to involve the entire industry and all the representatives. I see some of the faces that were there here today. With the goal to, again, double the amount of women within 5 years in the industry. And how do we do that? Well, hopefully by challenging ourselves as an industry. So dare to step out into public and say, this is our goal, this is what we're aiming for, this is what we accept, this is what we don't accept, and then live by those rules. Because again, it's an old cliche to say lead by example. You can talk about these issues and you can say that you're going to do things, but it's not until you actually do it and actually take action that people will believe in you, and that's when you start changing your image and live up to it and kind of start changing people's perception of where you want to go. And my hope is that with events like we had the other week, that work is ongoing, and that we will be at the forefront, at least in Sweden to begin with, as an industry. And hopefully poach some very talented people from other industries, because they rather work with games than work. I'm not gonna, mention all the other industries. Come to us.
Okay, and that's all. We talked a lot about the workplace and sort of formal management teams and the employers and stuff. But in this work, you're kind of building a network outside. So you as a company, or is it a company or an individual?
Very good question. It is what we make of it. And obviously it started with Paradox, but again, we have a representative from 10 different companies where they all attended, they all acted as facilitators. We have Jenny, who was on the panel here just before, is also heavily involved. So and hopefully I happen to know that we're looking to start some kind of network on a more industry level as well. So that you could consider this as kind of the grassroots movement, and then you have the more formal movement, and hopefully we work from both ends and meet in the middle, and once we're done, we've transformed the industry to something better.
One of the things I liked about this networking session was that it really embodied the idea that Susanna was talking about before of different acceptance of different ideas, because you had top management and students working together, and they don't really connect that often. So it's a nice way of sort of embodying this vision. Okay, Jenny, please tell us about Donna.
So Donna is an organization associated with computer game development programs in Skövde, because we did have a problem with gender, the gender distribution in the program, so we had to do something about it. So we work towards 3 different target groups, sort of. So we work towards society and the industry, and we work internally with the students and the working environment and gender equality within that. And then we also, of course, reach out to potential students and how to inspire young girls to become game developers. And we do that by using our own students. And I know that one of my, or 2 of them now, I think, are actually working at Paradox.
Oh, wow.
To my former Donna students. Well, one is still active. So they go out and they can have like real activities. They could be workshops or just giving talks. And one of the ones that actually are in play here now, she and her team, they created a game together with an organization called Doris Film, which is an organization which probably you heard of, that works for gender equality within the film industry. And they wanted a game to promote. So, and they have this manifesto that all leads in the team should be female, and this should be a female protagonist, and so on. So we created a team of that during their education to sort of promote the idea of Doris Film. But it became a game that will be released this year. So I think that is a very concrete example. And I think 80% of the team were female. So that's one very concrete examples, but we've also presented this game and our job at different conferences and at GDC, like a month ago or so. So we reach out and we've been talking to politicians and trying to convince them to talk in a different way when it comes to game and try to help us with this attitude change in society. We talk to journalists, we are part of the diversity network, and I think we try to be sort of everywhere where we think that, oh, this sounds interesting, this is where we want to be. We collaborate with companies as well.
And you talked earlier about how there are all these factors that sort of come together.
It's confusing,
to keep,
right?
Yeah, no, but it's all these things that play into this narrative.
That's spinning in my mind all the time.
Yeah, so it's like maybe it's difficult to imagine a worse situation than all these different forces. So it's this sort of vicious circle. And also, if we look at specifically at recruitment, and John was also touching on that topic before, we have the same proportion of women working in the industry as the proportion of women applying for jobs in the industry, as the proportion of women graduating from the game educations, as the proportion of women in the games educations, as the proportion of women applying for the games education. So it seems like however deep you go, how early can you catch them?
We've had workshops for girls in high school and up. But of course that's true. But I think that yes, so it has to be a long-term goal, of course. I mean, we started I think 5 years ago or something, but now we have increased quite a lot actually. I think when we started, we had like 8 or 10% of the students were female. Now we're over 20, so it's actually quite an increase over these years. And I think that when you get more female students, they are also sort of visible to others and wow, hey, I can be you. So they become role models. So it takes time, but eventually we will, have more and more applications. So because that's where it starts. If we don't get women to apply for the programs, we will never get them into the program, of course. So that's like the first challenge. But you can start when they are very young. And I think it also means starting to sort of encourage them doing technology, because that's a problem. We do have like 50% female students at the game writing program, for instance, or at the graphics programs, but not in programming and not in game design and not in sound, because they probably feel that that is too technologically driven. So we have to take away that wall. We have to sort of break that wall somehow.
Okay, and Donna is part of the answer. We'll get to more long-term solutions and ideas in a second, but now I'd like to hear a perspective from a different industry. Okay, great. Tack, Jan. So we have a surprise guest here. This is like reality television. Look who's here. Anna Saner, great to have you. Welcome. So yeah, why don't you join us on stage? That's great, even better. Come on up. Maybe we can put your name on the backdrop real quick. No. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the director of the Swedish Film Institute, Anna Saner.
Thank you.
The work that you have done in diversity and equality in the film industry is a model, and it's being paraded around the world. I've seen press clips from North America, down under, everywhere talking about. What is it that you've done in the film industry?
Well, I actually think that you already mentioned everything, but I think it's really amazing that when you stop only to talk and start to act and actually do things, you get results. And when you get results, others sees it. And I think that's the fantastic thing now when I'm out, that people actually get good, positive feelings that, wow, you can do things. And one thing really, you know that, but when I made my first action plan, I didn't tell people that we were actually doing gender equality like you have done. And you see, I mean, there are quite a few, some are talking to each other instead, but you want to talk to people and you want to talk to a lot of people. So we made the action plan and we launched it in Almedalen. And we didn't tell. We said, come see commercials that reflect different times that have been needing political decisions. And everyone loves commercials, so we filled the whole cinema, and it was really men and women. And then we started to show commercials where women, as usual, are sexually objectified and treated shittily, or whatever, if that is a word.
I think it is now.
And the funny thing was that I kind of, after 3 commercials, the audience started to feel like, this is not what I thought this would be. And I went up on stage and I said, I'm really sorry, this is a coup and you're taking hostages because we can't have it like this. So what should we do? And that meant that we got TT, like an AP, took it up and it was released in all newspapers the next morning, which meant that everybody knew. And then we just could start doing it, and there was no kind of hideaway. And I think that is a very good thing, to lie a little bit, to be able to talk to the ones that never listens, because the ones in real power never listens, because they don't want to change, really. No one wants to change, but we have to make that. And what I now, when I'm out talking about it, it really, really shows that people now look at Swedish film like, wow, yeah, you know, Swedish film, that's really, really interesting. What do you have now? I want to go home and watch some movies that is made from a Swede. So what films do you recommend? And it's really working with a brand. And the gaming industry, there is such an open position for anyone wanting to commercialize on being in the forefront. So you're probably doing exactly the right things, and it's just that the industry that you're head of needs to actually, I think, take some recommendations, and you have to ask nasty questions to all your members. So what are your goals? What do you do? Can we see some results?
So, and this goes to the point that Pernilla was making before about how inclusivity helps creativity and in turn helps the business case.